There is a place in the state of Georgia where no criminal ever wants to go. That place is called Alto State Prison, formerly Lee Arundel in Alto, Georgia. If you come here, you surely won't make it out.
Stay tuned for Tales from the Toe.
Alto Prison. Smurfette ate poop pie. Jamal, young Smurf. Sanchez was no stranger to trouble. At just 18 years old, he had already made a name for himself in the streets of Macon, Georgia. Born to a black mother and a Mexican father, he had inherited the best of both worlds but felt like he belonged to neither. His mixed heritage made him a target for taunts and alienation, even within his gang, the Crips, which in the small city of Macon was predominantly black. Young Smurf, who had gotten his name from his Crip OG at the time, who gave him that name because he was wearing a Smurf's hoodie on the night he was jumped into the gang. The mixed man had always found solace in cars. His obsession with fast, shiny vehicles had led him down a dark path. He started with joyriding but quickly graduated to grand theft auto. The night he drove a stolen Kia through a dealership's display window was the night his fate was sealed. The thrill of the chase ended with the flashing blue lights of MPD, and before he knew it, he was sentenced to 10 years in Alto State Prison, receiving time served for the 8 months he spent in the Bibb County Jail. Alto State Prison was a world away from the streets of Macon that he was familiar with. The red clay, the tall pine trees, and the oppressive Georgia heat combined to create a hellish environment. From the moment he stepped through the gates, shackled and surrounded by guards, young Smurf knew he was in for the fight of his life, despite being a member of the Crips, which he had heard outnumbered every other gang in the prison's population, 2-1. Inside, the prison was a battleground. All of the gangs controlled every aspect of life, and young Smurf quickly realized that his gang affiliation was both a blessing and a curse. As a member of the Crips, he had instant protection, but his mixed heritage and feminine facial features made him a target, even amongst members of his own organization, most of whom were homosexual freaks who didn't care that this pretty young man was in their gang. The days in Alto were long and monotonous, punctuated by moments of intense danger. Young Smurf tried to keep his head down, but his hot temper and need to prove himself often got the better of him, especially so since he had only grown to the height of 5 feet 6 inches and weighed 142 pounds. One night, in an attempt to earn respect and make some extra money, he joined a poker game with some of his fellow Crips. The game started off friendly enough, but as the hours passed and the stakes grew higher, the atmosphere turned tense. Young Smurf was down on his luck, losing hand after hand. By the time the final pot was up, he had lost more money than he had in his locker box. "That's $600 you owe, Smurf," said Big Dre, the leader of the Crips in Alto. "You got the money?" Young Smurf swallowed hard, knowing he didn't have 60 cents, more or less $600 to his name. "I ain't got it right now, but I'll get it," he promised. Big Dre's eyes narrowed. "You better, or there'll be consequences, cuz." The next day, true to his word, Big Dre and his cronies began plotting their revenge on their cute-ass Crip brother. They sent one of the YGs to ask him one more time for the $600 he owed, and when he replied that he didn't have it yet, they sprung into action. Later that night, as the slender teen hopped in the 12-man shower after working up a sweat out on the prison yard shooting hoops, Big Dre sent 5 of his Crip soldiers into the steamy and moldy showers to take turns violating young Smurf, 2 of the gangsters holding him down as the others worked up erections and released themselves inside of his spread-open yellow cheeks, which became blood-smeared due to all of the pounding and pumping back there. After the queer quintet of Crips finished the nasty violation, they all rinsed themselves off and left young Smurf lying on the cold shower floor whimpering like a 4th grader who had just gotten hit by a drunk driver. The next morning, all of the Crips in the dorm started calling young Smurf Smurfette, mocking him at every turn. The nickname and last night's incident spread through the prison like wildfire, and soon everyone was using it. The humiliation was relentless. One night, after enduring another round of taunts, young Smurf returned to his cell to find a slice of homemade prison pie waiting for him on his bed. For those of you that have never been to jail or prison, a prison pie is when inmates take a bunch of sweet items like Snickers bars, honey buns, etc., and crush them all up into a bowl and cook the concoction in a microwave. He had overheard other inmates talking about how delicious the Crip's pie was for days, claiming it was a rare treat. Hungry and worn out, young Smurf decided to take a bite. As he chewed, a strange taste filled his mouth. He involuntarily swallowed before he could spit it out, realizing too late that it was a cruel joke. The ingredients definitely had a mixture of Snickers bars and other sugary items in it, but there was also the disgusting presence of what could be nothing other than human feces. The pie was filled with hot shit from various people. Laughter echoed through the cell block as he gagged and vomited while several of his Crips gang members stared him at through his open cell door. The constant harassment and humiliation took their toll on young Smurf. He felt isolated and betrayed, even by those he considered his friends. His anger festered, threatening to boil over. He knew he had to find a way to regain his respect and prove that he wasn't to be trifled with. One evening, after another round of insults, young Smurf snapped. He confronted one of the younger Crips in the yard, his eyes blazing with fury. "You think this is funny?" he yelled. "You think you can keep fucking with me like this?" The skinny loke smirked. "What you gonna do about it, Smurfette?" Without warning, young Smurf lunged at Teen, fists flying. The fight was brutal and short-lived, with guards quickly breaking it up and dragging young Smurf to solitary confinement with a missing front tooth. In the darkness of his solitary cell, young Smurf had plenty of time to think. He knew he couldn't change his heritage or his appearance, so when the CO brought the shaving clippers around the dorm to each cell, he filled his sink up with water, and when it was his turn to shave in his cell, he instead plunged the clippers, which he turned on, into the water-filled sink, tasing himself the good old-fashioned way. This marked an end to a young life that should have never been inside of Alto to begin with. The moral of this story is to stay out of the streets and stay out of trouble, and you will never go through something as horrendous as the life of Jamal Sanchez.
Let's go. Yeah.